What if I told you the number 4 edge rusher on my board might not actually be a traditional edge rusher at all? Suntarine Perkins is one of the most unique defensive players in college football. At 210 pounds, he's a chess piece who can rush the passer, drop into coverage, play off the ball, line up in the slot, and give defensive coordinators options most edge defenders simply cannot. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Draft Yoda, where we are data-driven and prospect-focused. As always, I am Draft Yoda himself, Bill Workman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd, and today we're breaking down Ole Miss edge rusher Suntarine Perkins. Perkins comes in with a grade of a 9.03 out of 10. Makes him my number 35 overall prospect and my number 4 edge rusher in the 2027 class. Now, this evaluation is different because when people hear edge rusher, they think a 250-pound, 275 pass rush specialist, winning around the corner, converting speed to power, and living in the backfield. And that's not exactly Suntarine Perkins. Perkins is a hybrid. He's part edge rusher, part off-the-ball linebacker, part slot defender, part blitzer, part coverage piece. And that's why he's so high, is because he has so many parts. If you looked at him specifically at each position, he's going to rank lower. But when you take the whole of the picture, that's when he climbs in this draft class. And the question I have is, which defensive coordinator is going to be willing to build a role that is able to maximize everything he does? Because if somebody does, Perkins becomes one of the most valuable move defenders in this class. Perkins grew up in Mississippi, Raleigh, Mississippi, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's a town of like 1,500 people. But out of a small town, he became one of the top high school players in the state of Mississippi. He was dominant. He was a unanimous 5-star prospect, consensus top 100 national player, and one of the most coveted defensive prospects in the country. Alabama wanted him, Georgia wanted him, Texas wanted him. And he decided to stay home. He went to Ole Miss. And he's a homegrown Mississippi star that helped build something in Oxford. And in high school, he wasn't just he was a two-way force. It's the only way I can say it. As a senior, he rushed for over 2,000 yards and 32 touchdowns. And on defense, he added another 92 tackles. So when you watch him now, you see the speed, the instincts, the open field movement, and the comfort playing in space. It makes sense because he's been a two-way guy his entire life. He's not a position player. He's an athlete. He's a football player. He is someone who has spent their entire career creating plays in space. And that background matters. Perkins still plays defense like a former offensive weapon. He sees space. He understands the angles. And he knows how to close. And he moves different than a lot of traditional edge rushers. He also, when he got to the Ole Miss, made an immediate impact. Played in 13 games as a true freshman. Started 2 of them. Had 38 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, and 3.5 sacks. Earned him All-American freshman and All-American All-American freshman and All-SEC freshman honors that season. That somebody that's making plays as a freshman is rare, especially in the SEC. And then came his sophomore season. Took a nice step forward. Led his team 14 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks in 13 games. He was third team All-SEC. He was an All-American honorable mention. And he helped anchor one of the nation's top rush defenses. And I think that's the season that firmly put him on the NFL draft radar. because the production matched the talent. You had the 5-star athleticism, you had the versatility, um, and now the backfield disruption started showing up in a big way. 2025 started off rough for him, undergoing a shoulder surgery, and that's part of the evaluation. Anytime a player wins with physicality, contact, tackling, has a shoulder surgery, NFL teams are going to want to check it. But he returned to start. He landed on, every award preseason watch list possible. And he continued to show the same versatility that makes him a unique defensive prospect. You can't. He is shown he can handle a lot. And I think the first thing that makes him so special is the versatility. He lined up on the slot, he lined up at edge. He was used as a blitzer, he was used in coverage, he was used in space. Near the line of scrimmage, it's rare to find a player that's used this much. Most edges can't do that. Most linebackers can't do that. Most slot defenders can't do that. Perkins, I almost want to make his own position of defensive player instead of putting him into a position. That's how rare his versatility is. Speaking of rare, second thing that jumps off is his coverage ability. This is what separates him from most normal edge rushers. He's comfortable dropping into space. He can match, he can move, he can cover ground. He's not just dropping into coverage because the defense is asking him to stand in grass. He actually looks natural doing it. And that is rare for a player with pass rush responsibilities. And that's why I end up calling him a hybrid at the end of it all, because he can do just about anything you want him to. His value is the multiplicity. You let him rush sometimes, you let him drop sometimes. You walk over tight ends, you let him muddle off the A gap, you let him chase, you let him play flat. That's where he becomes dangerous, is allowing him to do all the multiple things so no offense really knows what's coming from him, down in and down out. Perkins is not just a space eater. He's not just a space athlete. He posted 42 run stops, 65 tackles across 15 games. Now that's real activity. He plays with a speed and an instinct, and when he sees it, he goes. He can trigger downhill. He can beat blockers to a spot. He can chase from the backside. He creates negative plays. It's the kind of defensive activity coaches are going to love. And, 3 forced fumbles, an interception, backfield disruptions, sacks, tackles for loss. He affects the football game. If the game you need to watch for him is the Arkansas tape. 5 run stops. He did it while playing over the front, and that's key. He's not just lining up in one spot and winning the same way every snap. He's moving, he's developing, he's used as a weapon. And that game shows that the appeal of it, because when a player can impact a run game from multiple alignments, the offense has to find him before every snap. That creates stress, that creates hesitation, and that creates opportunities for everybody else around you. The 2 sacks against Miami matter because of one of the big questions Perkins is going to be asked is how much pure pass rush value does he have? The coverage and the movement skills are obvious. The versatility is obvious. But at the end of the day, can you get after the quarterback. And against Miami, he showed he could. Now, do I think he's a finished pass rusher? No, not at all. It's not the cleanest part of his game. But the speed is real, the timing is real, and when he gets runway, he can close in a hurry. And that is a package that NFL defensive coordinators are going to love. He fits the more positionless defenses that you're seeing in the league. He allows them to. He is a chess piece. He's not going to be your traditional 320-pound, 4-3 defensive end. He's a chess piece. I do think, as I've said, every one of these, nobody's perfect. He does need to improve on his frame. He's listed at 210 pounds. That's extremely light for any position that he would have him playing on the field outside of slot corner. For an edge rusher, that's extremely light. For a linebacker, that's light. And it shows up against power, bigger offensive tackles or tight ends who get their hands on him. He gives ground. And when a offense can figure that out and does that, teams run downhill at him because he's able to be displaced. It does not mean he can't play, but it does mean that he has to be careful with his role. He's not a heavy edge setter. He's not a full-time trench player. He is a speed and space defender. And I think that's an important distinction for him. Another concern for him is his tackling. 14 missed tackles is way too many, especially if you are a little undersized of a player. You want to, if you're lighter, you want to have every other thing clean as possible to give them less things to doubt about you. You have to be under control. You have to wrap up. You can't rely on just throwing your body at people, especially in the NFL, where missed tackles become explosive plays. That's something Perkins going to have to work on. Third concern is his pure pass rush profile. He can rush. He can affect quarterbacks. He has speed and instincts, but he has to develop as a true edge rusher. If he wants to climb in the draft, the rush plan needs work. His hand usage needs work. And his ability to convert his incredible speed to power is limited with his frame. I've mentioned it earlier, and the other thing that scares me about him is the medical. The shoulder surgery before the season is worth a check, for a player who has to tackle, shed, blitz, take on blocks, the shoulders matter incredibly. And it's not a huge red flag because he did play last season, but it's going to be part of the file that NFL teams want checked. And it's going to be one of the key things for him at the combine is that medical clearance. That'll be the first time NFL teams get to really see him in the medical field. So, why is he edge 4? And it's simple. Simmons is rare and a more natural high-end edge profile. Uyunglele has the size, power, and it's a complete defensive end profile. Dylan Stewart is a physical and upside phenomenon who fits more of a traditional every down defensive edge threat. And that's what makes Perkins 4 for the edges because he's the 4th best pure pass rusher. No, he's not the 4th best pure pass rusher. He's the 4th best edge hybrid defensive weapon. I mean, he truly, I wish I could create a class for him called hybrid because it's the only way that it makes sense to visualize Perkins for any team is a hybrid role. He wins differently. He's going to bring a different package, and his path to the NFL is going to be more scheme dependent, but the upside is real, and his versatility is super rare. 2026 is big for him because he has to clean out some of his details. The athleticism he's already proven. He's already proven his versatility. He's already proven his playmaking. We just need to see some, improvement in his tackling. He needs to hold up just a little better against the power, and he needs to develop a little bit more in his pass rush. If those things happen, he could become one of the most fascinating defensive prospects in this class. And because the NFL is always looking for players who can create answers and who can create mismatches and can help players around them by drawing attention. And Perkins does that. He can cover tight ends. He can blitz from the second level. He can spy quarterbacks. He can drop from the edge. He can attack from the perimeter on the run game. And he can create pressure in sub packages. That is a rare piece. But that's me. He's a 9.03 out of 10 on my scale. He makes him my number 35 overall prospect. My number 4 edge rusher. Number 1 hybrid, maybe is the better way I could have said it. But there's no hybrids in draft rankings. He's one of the most unique defenders in this class. He can rush, he can cover, he can play off the ball, he can line up in the slot, he can create turnovers, he can chase, he can blitz. He can give defensive coordinators real flexibility. But the frame matters, the tackling technique matters, the shoulder matters, and the role matters. He's not going to be a perfect fit for every defense. But in the right system, with the right coordinator, Perkins can be a nightmare in the NFL. He's a movable piece, a speed defender. He's a hybrid weapon. But that's my board. That's how I see him. What do you think about What do you think about Perkins? Is he an edge rusher? Is he a linebacker? Is he a defensive weapon? Can he become a first rounder in the right scheme? Where do you think he lands? Does he end up in the edge rushers class? Does he end up in the linebackers class? Drop your comments down below. If you enjoy these player profiles, we do them with film and analytics. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe. Because we're going to keep putting in the work. We're going to have over 100 prospects done before the start of the college football season. As always, I am Draft Yoda, Bill Rigman, your favorite draft nerd's favorite draft nerd. And we'll see you guys in the next one.